This was not built just for vegans. This was very much my intention, and I think it's wrong to go into it that way. I don't think shaming the non-vegans and shaming meat eaters is the way to go. And unfortunately, I experience that with vegans all the time, and it really is a bummer. And that's why people shy away from opening vegan places, to be honest with you. And so what we need to do is normalize it. Then when I go to Portland, when I've been to New York and I've gone to London, it just is. I don't know how else to say it. Like, they just are plant-based.
I'm Andrea Learned, and welcome to Living Change, a podcast exploring unconventional climate leadership. I talk to people who've converted their personal values into business and policy decisions in a load of different sectors. I believe that the more we're visible about these changes, the more we chart the way for other leaders wanting to create new social norms. Today, I'm speaking with globally recognized KEXP DJ and the longtime beloved host of the morning show, John Richards, at his plant-based bar in the heart of Capitol Hill in Seattle, Life on Mars.
I'm probably standing in the area that's probably I'm most proud of, because when we decided to build this place, I wanted to have a living room or like a basement where people collect vinyl and hang out. And so to have a space large enough to be able to achieve that's been awesome. So
we catch up with John in what he calls the vinyl living room, an area of the bar that really does feel like you're in someone's extremely cool living room. One wall has nearly 6,000 records floor to ceiling, and another has a giant mural. Cool! In it, a David Bowie-like spaceman floats over a classic Washington Mountain landscape with translucent color spots. I found it sort of trippy and stunning, but I'm not qualified to talk about art. You just need to see it for yourself.
It was funny when we did our mural here. We felt like we needed this mural for someone. We needed like a thing that everyone's eyes were drawn to, or whatever. We never thought that it would be the giant 6,000 record wall to my left. But this sort of draws everybody in.
From outside.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think they walk by and they're like, woo.
Yeah, one of my favorite things is to sit here in the room and look out the window, and you see people who've never, been in here walk by and stop and point, and they're coming in at some point. At some point, we'll break them down.
Yeah. John gives us a quick tour of Life on Mars. From the disco bathroom with its own sound system. Yeah, you heard that right.
So we installed a disco ball, the lighting. Disco's usually playing, the entire day.
To the 2 record players at the front, something I've never seen at another bar.
These are 2 techniques that we installed at the front of the bar. So right when you walk in, it tells you what we're about.
And this is serious.
Yeah, and so, we are about music. If you didn't know that, we are. And so what happens if people come in, and they can pick records from the wall, and we play album sides instead of playing a jukebox or playing our own mix. We just make sure you can only pick good records, and that's, in our opinion, all we have in that wall. So there is a cutoff, like around 6, 7 every night. We cut off to a mix that I put together because it's just too busy. And so it's a nice mix of both, hey, here, pick some vinyl, and then later it's a mix that I've created for the bar. But I'm really proud of this just because we weren't sure how to, hand over control to people, and we ended up handing over control to people. So, yeah.
In a smart way. The food isn't the only aspect of the bar that's vegan. Every element of the bar's design and materials are plant-based.
I've been vegan for half my life, since January 1st, 2000. And so we were never going to open a place where it was served animals or served dairy or any way exploited animals or any life be taken. It seems silly when you say it like that.
Yes.
So everything we did had that in mind when we designed the bar, we designed the menu, we designed the drinks. More drinks than actually have that because of a lot of the tubing they run through. We guts of animals and things like that. So, and then other beers especially, and some liquors as well. So we go through that with, meticulously making sure that you just know that you can come in here and know that nothing was harmed during that. And the design was the same. The materials used in the booths, everything, we didn't want to, it's hard. You see why people cut corners or don't make that effort, because it's just easier. And to be honest, it's more expensive. It doesn't make any sense to me why it's more expensive, but it is.
The intentionality with which John and his wife, Amy, built this restaurant, living their change and living their values, is so inspiring to me. I love that although the restaurant is plant-based, the vibe of the bar is fun, funky, and inclusive. It's a restaurant that just is plant-based and invites you to make that choice even for one meal.
That's the whole idea here, is this was not built just for vegans. This was very much my intention. And I think it's wrong to go into it that way. I don't think shaming the non-vegans and shaming meat eaters is the way to go. And unfortunately, I experience that with vegans all the time. And it really is a bummer. And that's why people shy away from opening vegan places, to be honest with you. And so what we need to do is normalize it. Then when I go to Portland, when I've been to New York and I've gone to London, even Amsterdam recently, there's been, it just is. I don't know how else to say it. Like, they just are plant-based. And so I wanted this place to be plant-based. And some people have come in here and accused me of tricking them because the food's so good.
Well, so
and I'm like, great, I'm glad I tricked you.
But this is what I want to say. So when you look at this place online or you walk up to it, there's no neon sign saying plant-based, vegan, etc. And this is that point that you're making.
We're proud of it. And I put plant-based on everything because I think vegan scares people away. And I think, unfortunately, to be honest with you, even our biggest critics will be vegans and not meat eaters.
Tell me a little bit of, it's
shocking. It actually shocked me, and I understand now as a vegan why I get resistance whenever they just assume I'm going to shame them and I'm going to make them feel bad and I'm going to tell them I'm better than them, or they just know maybe they know somewhere in their heart that eating animals and dairy is hurting the earth and hurting themselves.
And they don't want to hear it.
They don't want to hear about it. So if you say you're vegan, you immediately are projecting that on them. And I didn't want that. I don't want that. Every time you come in here, every time, you're having a plant-based meal, and then that means you weren't having a meat, dairy-based meal. Every time. And if you can come in here and see, you can have a great bar meal, and drinks, and they're vegan. It might open the door to you to think oh, I guess I could be. Because I hear a lot of people well, I can't have anything vegan. I'm like, dude, have you had a salad? Have you had French fries? Potato chips?
Right.
Those are actually in many cases vegan, friend. So, this is how it should be. You should just be matter of fact about it. That's just what we are. I don't have to be Thai to enjoy Thai food. You don't have to be vegan to enjoy vegan food. I think food is just delicious. And if we can get people in a bar setting, especially where you have come in disarmed, you're just coming in for a drink, have some food, you have it, and in many cases, absolutely no idea that it was plant-based, is super cool in my book.
John's point here is bigger than just his experience. It's something I've witnessed in my food systems related climate work too. I've seen this disconnect about how we get people to consider transitioning away from eating food produced through animal agriculture. There's this infighting about which words to use and purity tests about who is in or out of the truly vegan club. If it's visible from outer space that even the masses of people who don't eat meat, dairy, or eggs already can't get along or agree, how can we persuasively convince other people to steer in that direction? For me, the key is messaging and allowance for the journey. The journey is more than just okay. It's key to lasting change. People are coming to visit Seattle, and people who listen to you all over are coming and going, I want to check out John's bar, and coming here. So the influence that you have because of the platform is incredible. It's interesting to me. You are really influencing people globally on this front.
Well, I've learned in Seattle that people make a trip to here. They're starting to associate it with Seattle. KEXP is a location, Life on Mars is a location, the Pike Place Market is a location, and so they have that on the list. And I've heard from people that I want to come to your bar and I'm gonna try vegan food. They haven't even.
Gosh.
And so when you hear that, you're like, that's great, good for you. And for me, it becomes like the Paul McCartney Meatless Monday thing. It's like when you come here, you're gonna visit from that place, and then you're gonna take a chance on the meal. So what's gonna happen when they go back? They may seek out the vegan place in their neighborhood, in their city, and then they may go down that path where they've seen a part of their town they haven't seen. If you're visiting Seattle, let's say you're on a cruise ship or you came in from the airport or you're staying downtown, you're going to stick
Heaven forbid.
You're going to stick to the same, no offense to Seattle, some pretty kind of boring, stale areas that are made for tourists. And I know this because when I travel, I try to get out of those areas because you're not seeing the actual city. Well, what happens when you come up Pike here and you come up Pine next door and you hit this is where you see Seattle. Yeah. As much change as there's been, this is still the heart and soul of the city. Or you go to West Seattle where I live, and it's, the heart and soul of that area is amazing, and it takes traveling a little and getting you to come somewhere. So if my platform can get you to come visit the music bar with vinyl that you've heard so much about that is named after a David Bowie song, well, then I've done something right because you've seen our city and you've tried vegan food, and hopefully, you had a good memory. I've run into so many people in this bar that have come from other cities. It's amazing. Everywhere. Almost every time I'm in here, I learn people have traveled here just to come to this bar.
I wanted to hear more about John's journey to veganism.
I had been leaning towards that for quite some time. I was in my 20s, and I had dated someone who was a vegetarian, and so I had been in that world, and it was not a great world then. There was like just, there's no Sprouts in this bar, by the way. No Sprouts.
Oh, okay.
Because every goddamn vegetarian place I went to, it was just Sprouts and dry bread and the worst sandwiches you've ever had. Like, that was it. I was like, I can't do this. And then, what's funny, you can eat really badly as a vegan, like really badly.
Yes.
And people say that to me. I don't know why. Like, well, you can be unhealthy. I'm like, yeah, you can. Absolutely. I could go eat baked goods all day long, like Flying Apron, one of my favorite places on earth is vegan. I could eat there all day and make. So I do a lot of sports, a lot of athletics. I'm from a family of smokers, alcoholics, overeaters, all who most died before they were 60 or at 60. None of them were runners or vegans or anything even close to what I'm doing. And so I didn't want to be like them. So I've been trying to do the opposite of them from the get-go. And so more and more I started thinking it seemed wrong to eat animals. Like, it just seemed wrong to hurt an animal if you didn't have to. Like, why would I do that if there's alternatives? And so actually I became vegan, right, I guess not in 2000, but vegetarian. I was at my brother's on New Year's Eve in Millennium. We're all freaked out about 1999.
Yes.
I'm like, well, if we all live, the computers flip. Seems so stupid now.
It does.
I think I'm going to try giving up meat, and I'm going to be done with it. And I'm someone, if I commit to something, I'm pretty committed. But yeah, we had a steak that night, and luckily it was super, like, rare, medium rare, just pink.
Oh.
And I ate about half of it. I was like, this is a way to go out.
Yeah.
I'm done. This is awful. And then a little down the road, a little while later, so I was barely doing any dairy. And Amy and I, she had some health issues, and some serious health issues. And giving up dairy in particular, she already was vegetarian, but giving up dairy was high on that list. And we were on a boat in the Atlantic Ocean somewhere. We made that decision to give dairy. So what we did is we went and found, you're still on a cruise ship.
Right.
That they took over. And we went and found the most disgustingly rich dairy, like a sundae cake sundae. We put ice cream on it, just piled it with dairy and just ate as much as we could.
To be the moment.
Yeah, to be like, let's remind ourselves why we want to give this up. I don't know why this was our thinking, but or go out with a bang. I'm not sure which. I'm sure we didn't finish it.
Well, it is akin to the big rare steak.
So each time it happened, I got it was awful. I felt so bad, and it made it very easy. And I'll tell you what, the next day, you make commitments though. The next day, we had to go through the Miami airport, which is the worst airport on many levels. But there was nothing. There was nothing we could eat. And we started to go like, well, I guess we could start tomorrow. And I said, look, if we can make it through the Miami airport and stay vegan and not have to compromise here. And sometimes you do and you don't even know you've compromised. I'm not so strict that I would beat myself up when that happens.
Same.
I think that's a really bad, I hate to label, right?
Yep.
But we made it through that airport. And we managed to find enough food, and we decided from then on we're going to plan better and be vegan. And so, yeah, we went out with a bang, and Amy's health improved greatly. It's not for everyone, but I think if you're having inflammatory issues, if you're having, health issues, it's something to look at. Dairy in particular is something to look at. My son was that way. He was a gluten intolerance, but once we took dairy out of his diet, and he went vegan, his health improved greatly. So it's just for him, that was, again, it was a life, it just changed his life.
Well, it's interesting because I say the same thing. I'm like, if you try it, if you go without dairy, literally, I feel like for like a week, you're going to see a difference. But to the point of all of this is each of these things, if you go plant-based, then you stop eating dairy, all these things happen. The story tells itself to you via your body.
Yeah, and you have to give yourself that chance. I have my buddy Gary. He's in the music industry. He's always been sort of a mentor to me, and he sat with me once and said, "John, he came out, visited from California. He goes, I'm really trying to be vegan, but I got to ask your advice here." I'm like, He goes, "I just love pizza, and so I don't know what to do." And I said, "Then eat pizza." But that. We don't get a card. You're not in a club. You didn't fail.
Right.
If you're doing everything but pizza, you're good, man.
Yeah.
Like, think of the moderation you've just achieved. But I bet because you still eat pizza, you're still eating meat and dairy and stuff because you're like, well, I'm not a vegan. They said, yeah, I am. I said, well, what if you just gave up that like you wanted to and allowed yourself this pizza? Now, I didn't tell him the secret information here is that in about 3 to 6 months, you're going to be like, I can't eat this pizza.
Yeah, that's the secret
So I didn't tell him
information.
that he's going to eat that dairy and be like, oh my, and just straight bread, by the way. This is like, I'm going to get sick. But at the time, I remember thinking, I have to remember this, these labels that we give each other, that he couldn't just be a moderate, because, vegans are say he's not a real, or whatever, or his friends are going to look at him funny, oh, I thought you were vegan and you're eating them. You know what? 95% of my diet now is plant-based.
Yeah.
Great, man, because it was 50% before.
Yeah.
Imagine if everyone went to 50%.
And so the motivation, it's self-perpetuating. That's
Oh, yeah.
my thing. People are always like, I don't know if I could do it. And I'm like, if you do it for like a week, your body will go, what did you just put in here?
Yeah. That's the whole idea of the bar, and the whole idea with us is just choose meals. Try not to make it the main thing in your meal.
Yeah.
Like just try and just see. Because for me, I had to, if you're a plant-based diet, you have to cook. You have no choice in this situation because I didn't cook before. And now I had to cook. And they said, well, what do you eat? I'm like, I eat so many more things I didn't eat before. I'm so more creative. I read Scott Jurek's book. Mm-hmm. He's the ultramarathoner. He's a vegan. I cannot recommend it enough. It had menus in it. And Amy was telling me, when you really started cooking? I said, when? She said, I was pregnant with our youngest son. And you knew I was out of commission, so you'd be cooking all the time instead of once in a while. Yeah. And you're reading that book, and he has recipes in the book. She said, he made like every recipe, like to this day, you make that chili, from this book. And so it's just because I was reading it for inspiration. He's a runner, I'm a runner, he's vegan, I'm vegan. So for me, if you want to learn more about your food and your body and be better about how you spend your money on food and and try to control what comes in your body, then if you have a plant-based diet, I think you're going to be a little more selective, which is good.
John makes a great point. I tell people all the time how when I first went plant-based, it was self-perpetuating because I felt so much better, almost within days. So then I wanted to experiment more with cooking and keep learning. I asked John about how his behavior changes have evolved and how it impacts his family and their lifestyles.
I moved to West Seattle. I used to bike my regular bike to the radio station every morning. I was in Greenwood. It's just a few miles. It's a haul, but it was like a haul I could handle even at that hour because it was scarier to ride home in the daytime.
Yeah, I agree.
To be honest, morning
being a
was,
biker, I know.
Yeah, morning was like it was dark. People could see me coming.
Yeah.
And later it's buses and cars that are mad at you
Yeah.
But I moved to West Seattle, so I was out off the table. Right? Okay, so I'm driving to work now. One day, Megan Jasper from Sub Pop, CEO of Sub Pop, was riding with her husband Brian in these e-bikes down the street, just with just the stupidest smiles you've ever seen. And I was like, "What is that?" I didn't know what it was. I was like shocked. I had no idea she was get on this thing. I got on and rode it around the neighborhood, and the next thing you know, I reached out to Rad Bikes and
one thing led to another.
Yeah, now I have a cargo bike that I ride, and the first 6 months I put 200 miles on it, and these 200 miles. I only rode it 2 places. I rode it to the park with my son, and I 95% of the time I ride it, my son's on the back. Right. And the other was to pick him up from school and back.
So it was really 2 very specific things that were transportation that you kind of felt you could do safely.
Safe.
I kind of want to
I
make
felt
that
safe. Yes.
Yes.
Because these roads were side roads, and the first day I rode my bike to pick him up, I'm like, well, I'm going to pick him up. I was just thinking, like, how am I going to use this bike?
Knew?
And West Seattle's made of hills. Seattle's just hills. So I picked him up and I looked, and it's one of those moments where you look and I'm one of these people. I was 25 cars idling in line, half live within a few miles of the school. And I was doing this too, so I'm not shaming anyone, but I just looked at it like, this is crazy. This is crazy talk. Like, what are we doing? And they would sit, and you're looking at the cars idling and exhaust going up. And I roll on my bike.
And you roll out.
And I just pull it up, and I'm like, hey, dude. And he gets out, and he puts his helmet on, and the kids are looking at him,
and
like,
you're
oh,
home
that's
like a half
cool.
hour early.
And I was out, and these people are still in line. And not only did I cut the line, but I cut the emissions, and I just rode 2 miles that I wasn't going to ride. And then, again, you add that up in 6 months, looking at that thing that said 200 miles. I mean, that was an eye-opener.
That's an eye-opener. And then what happens is you start to squeak it out, right? I need something from the drugstore or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you look at your e-bike thing and go, oh, my goodness, I've ridden this much.
It's a
tool.
I cannot recommend those enough to people. Like, I cannot. For someone who gave up bike riding really because of where he moved, because he has kids. So, of course, I can't ride with my 9-year-old. He's huge.
Right.
But on my back of my e-bike, he totally fits on there, and I can ride on roads where I'm not going to get hit by a car most likely, and we can go down to Lincoln Park, we go down to the Junction, we can go to his school, and these are all places I probably wouldn't have gone to in a car.
But so then the other thing that you realize, and I'm even from the veganism and the bikes, is how much you're influencing your kids. So you've got a child that's in high school, or you get to a point where the kids are 16, and my neighbor automatically like, oh, I can drive now. I'm going to save to buy a car. And it's like just giving your kids the gift of eat a plant-based diet, think about riding a bike instead of driving. Oh my gosh. And then exponential climate influence.
My 18-year-old, and I remember looking at your carbon footprint, and I have kids. The number one thing you can do is not have kids. Well, too late. I have kids.
And you love it.
Not drive a car. Okay, well, I have a car, and I do have to transport, even if they're hybrids, and I'll go electric in my next purchase. But my 18-year-old has never had meat in his life. He's more militant about being vegan than I am. He's not shy about it. He knows how to talk to people about it, even when because what we've experienced all our life is people angry at us. And again, I can't understand it. And I don't understand a lot of things humans do, but that one always gets me. And Arlie has handled it like a champ, and he's just matter of fact about it. He's like, hey man, I don't want animals to die. So my kids, I hope, will influence others and themselves. And at 18, Arlie he has the right. We are not, and that's the other thing, we do not enforce this when they leave our homes. You're not going to find meat or dairy in our home because we don't have any.
Right.
But if you go out, my son is going to go out. It is your call. It is up to you now. And he's got
to hunt it down, right? As if he's in the Miami airport.
And I let him know, like, hey, well, he could have meat, and I just let him know, like, this is going to taste, you're going to think it's funny because it tastes is very similar. He said, well, then why would I have that? I said, well, I don't know. I said, that's up to you, though. And so he has stuck to that, and I would say probably will all of his life.
And the other thing is just being strategic, I think, both with the bikes and the plant-based, like being strategic of, do I need to drive this? No, I can take a bus or a bike. And then being strategic with the thinking ahead. If I'm going to go to this party or I'm going to be with these friends, let me bring a vegan bar or something.
Like with Arlie, he takes the bus. He goes to school downtown. It's quite a commute. He doesn't have a license yet. And I think it's the best thing we did for him. Plus, my son riding the bus is going to give him an education he's not going to get anywhere else. He's always going to appreciate how he gets from one place to another. He won't take for granted when he is able to drive, and he knows he has the tools to use public transportation or a bike, which I think is really important. You got to at least introduce it to them so they know they have that.
If you're living change, people see your values, and that reflects in decisions that ripple outward in your family, in the community, and in the environment. Suddenly, one person's impact really reverberates.
At the top of who I am is I just want to make a difference in people's lives. I want to make their lives better in some way. So it's be a good human. And then what does that mean? Yeah. I care about animals. I care about life. I think our ability to mass slaughter animals relates directly to our ability to hurt each other. Yeah. And so I feel like if we could just be kind to humans and be kind to animals and be kind to any living thing. It seems like a low bar that we can't seem to hit, that this world would be a better place. So if I live that every day, maybe they can see, like, that guy seems somewhat normal. Right. He's not totally loony, and he's a vegan. And there are all sorts of people. I mean, my argument is always sports, music. I don't know. There are a couple things where there's community, and you're standing at you guys go to a lot of professional sports. You're standing in a stadium with a bunch of people whose politics maybe you don't agree with, but you're cheering it on. Same thing when I'm at shows or at KEXP events. It's like, all the people could be whatever, but we're all going, hell yeah. And so that solidarity and a universal love and respect, oh my God. And be open about the things you support, and then tell everyone,
well, that's okay.
This is what we are. Not you have to do it.
No.
But if you believe, if you like us, if you follow what we do,
this is how we made our decision.
This is a decision. And I think we probably open people's eyes to do that.
The point that you made, that you do this, but also you mention it or you let slip, right, that you're doing this, and that you had maybe a decision change. So even telling me that, but I've also heard you say that on the air, you're mapping it out. And in a way, what I think you're doing is giving other people permission who are kind of thinking about going vegan, or kind of thinking about to try it, which I also feel that I do. And that is exactly what I'm talking about.
That's exactly right.
I mean, it's so fun. So this has been amazing, John. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks so much to John Richards for taking the time to share his story and his amazing bar with us. This conversation with John brings up so many valuable points for leaders looking for ways to lead by example. Behavior changes are self-perpetuating. You start with a meatless Monday or a simple reduction in meat consumption, and you feel so good. You start to think more about animal agriculture. The why to eat this way gets a lot more interesting to dig into. Gradually, maybe you make the switch from dairy, and then maybe you're ready to tackle your transportation methods. If we trust the process and expose more people to plant-based food, especially by way of highlighting leaders who are vegan or call themselves plant-based, we can shift the perceived social norm and move their peers and followers along the path. From the climate perspective, not being militant about veganism helps more people lower their political defenses and eat new kinds of food. So trust the process. Expose more people to amazingly fun bars like Life on Mars and plant-based food trucks, etc. Leverage the stories of influential people. Celebrities, yes, but for me, even more important are the folks we already point to as professional leaders. They are the surprising validators, with huge influence to shape policies and expose their staff and stakeholders to a whole new way of thinking. Identifying, building, and leveraging your leadership is something few may feel prepared to do. But climate influence can't wait. If your organization is ready to make the shift, reach out to me. I'd love to help. Find me at www.learnedon.com. I'm also easy to find on Twitter, until it is no more, and LinkedIn. Living Change is produced by Large Media. That's LARJ Media. Special thanks to Tina, Joelle, Jeff, and Maria. Until next time, pedal safely.